It was supposed to be just another quiet night, but fate had other plans. I remember the moment vividly, my head nodding off as exhaustion took over. My car parked in what I thought was a safe corner of the city. Then came the sharp rap on my window, jolting me awake like an electric shock. Two officers stood there, their flashlights piercing through the darkness and into my soul. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Panic clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to appear calm. "Ma'am?" one of them said sternly, his voice cold and unyielding. "Sleeping in your vehicle is prohibited." I tried to explain, stammering that I'd only closed my eyes for a second, but every word felt like digging myself deeper into a hole. The younger officer stared at me with suspicious eyes, his gaze dissecting my every movement. When I fumbled for words, his expression hardened further, as if he already knew I was hiding something. "Why are your eyes red?" he demanded suddenly, shining the flashlight directly into my face. "And why do you look so nervous?" His tone dripped with accusation, making me feel like a criminal even though I hadn't done anything wrong. When they ordered me out of the car, my legs trembled beneath me. Each step toward them felt heavier than the last, as though gravity itself conspired against me. Their questions came rapid fire, relentless, prying open cracks in my fragile composure. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. I was trapped under their scrutiny. That's when I realized this wasn't just about sleeping in a car anymore. Something darker loomed ahead, something I couldn't yet see clearly, but instinctively feared. The air was thick with tension as the two officers began their intrusive search. Every movement they made felt deliberate, calculated to unsettle me further. The younger one circled my car like a predator stalking its prey, his flashlight slicing through the shadows inside. He opened the glove compartment first, rifling through papers and old receipts as if expecting to uncover some dark secret. Each item he pulled out seemed to weigh heavier on my conscience, even though there was nothing incriminating among them. My breath hitched when he found an old, crumpled map tucked beneath the passenger seat. "What's this for?" he asked sharply, holding it up as if it were evidence of a crime. I tried to respond, but my voice faltered, leaving only silence between us, a silence that spoke volumes. Meanwhile, the older officer stood closer, his presence looming over me like a storm cloud. His eyes never left mine, piercing through any facade of calm I had managed to maintain. When the junior officer announced that there were no house keys in the car, the corner of the senior officer's mouth curled into a menacing smirk. "No keys?" he repeated slowly, his tone dripping with mockery. "Then where do you live, ma'am? Or were you planning to sleep here all night?" His words weren't just questions. They were accusations, each syllable designed to chip away at my defenses. I stammered something about losing my keys, but even I could hear how unconvincing it sounded. As the search continued, the pressure mounted unbearably. They moved from the car to me, asking me to step back against it while they patted me down. The younger officer's hands moved methodically, impersonal yet invasive, while the older one watched intently, his gaze sharp enough to cut glass. "Spread your legs," he commanded coldly, and I obeyed, trembling. The humiliation burned hotter than the chill of the night air. It wasn't just the physical invasion. It was the way they stripped away my dignity piece by piece, reducing me to a suspect in my own life. When the junior officer finally straightened up, shaking his head slightly to indicate he'd found nothing, the senior officer let out a low chuckle that sent shivers down my spine. "You're hiding something," he said, stepping closer until his face was mere inches from mine. "And trust me, we'll find out what it is." His breath smelled faintly of coffee and cigarettes, a nauseating combination that made my stomach churn. For a moment, I thought he might grab me, but instead he stepped back, gesturing for me to get into their patrol car. "Let's go," he barked, his voice brooking no argument. I hesitated, glancing around desperately for an escape route, but the younger officer blocked my path, his expression unreadable. Trapped between them, I felt like a bird caught in a snare, unable to break free. As I climbed into the back seat of the patrol car, the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Whatever nightmare I was living now, it was only beginning. The moment we stepped into my apartment, the atmosphere shifted. What had once been my sanctuary now felt like a prison cell with soft carpeting and expensive furniture. The older officer, Officer Grayson, as he introduced himself, strode in as if he owned the place, his polished shoes clicking ominously against the hardwood floor. He glanced around, taking in every detail of the spacious living room, before turning to me with that same unsettling smirk from earlier. "Nice place you've got here," he said, but it wasn't a compliment. It was a statement of possession. His eyes lingered on me too long, making my skin crawl. Before I could protest, he offered to make coffee, already moving toward the kitchen like he belonged there. "What do you want from me?" I blurted out, my voice trembling. He paused, leaning casually against the counter, and chuckled darkly. "Relax, sweetheart. I'm just being hospitable." But there was nothing warm or welcoming about his tone. It dripped with condescension and control. When he brought the steaming mug over, his fingers brushed mine deliberately, sending a jolt of fear through me. "All girls love guys in uniform," he added with a wink, his words slicing through me like a knife. This wasn't hospitality. It was entrapment. As the night wore on, his behavior grew increasingly suffocating. Every movement I made seemed to draw his attention. If I shifted uncomfortably on the couch, his gaze followed. If I stood up to adjust the curtains, he raised an eyebrow as though questioning my motives. It was clear he wanted me to feel trapped, to know that I was under his watchful eye at all times. And then came the chilling declaration. "Every holiday is yours now," he said softly, handing me another cup of coffee laced with sugar. So sweet it made my teeth ache. At first, I thought it was some twisted attempt at kindness, but the truth hit me like a sledgehammer. He wasn't offering me holidays. He was claiming them for himself. By declaring ownership over every celebration, he was marking me as his property, erasing any sense of autonomy I might have had left. When I tried to retreat to my bedroom, he blocked my path, his towering frame casting a shadow over me. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. I muttered something about needing rest, but he only smiled. A slow, predatory grin that sent shivers down my spine. "You don't need to hide from me," he murmured, stepping closer, until I could smell the faint scent of cologne mixed with stale coffee on his breath. "I'll take care of everything." Those words should have been comforting, but instead they felt like chains tightening around my wrists. By the time he finally left, the air in the apartment felt heavy, as though his presence still lingered in every corner. I collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my face, realizing that this wasn't just a bad dream. It was my new reality. Officer Grayson wasn't merely a man enforcing the law. He was a predator staking his claim, and I was his unwilling prey. Every interaction with Officer Grayson was a delicate balancing act, like walking on the edge of a knife. At first glance, his gestures seemed kind. Flowers left on my doorstep. Expensive chocolates delivered without warning. But beneath the surface of these gifts lurked an unmistakable threat. Each bouquet carried a silent message. You are mine. Each box of chocolates whispered, resist, and you'll regret it. His generosity wasn't born out of affection. It was a calculated display of power, a reminder that he could give as easily as he could take away. The luxury of my apartment began to feel suffocating, less like a home and more like a gilded cage where every comfort came at the cost of my dignity. The fear never left me, not even for a moment. It clung to me like a second skin, seeping into my thoughts during the day and haunting my dreams at night. I lived in constant dread of what would happen if I ever tried to push back against him. Would he hurt me? Arrest me? Or worse, would he find some way to make sure no one ever believed me if I spoke out? Every time he called or showed up unannounced, my heart raced, unsure whether this visit would be another twisted game or something darker. He had stripped me of my autonomy piece by piece, leaving me trapped in a life I didn't recognize. My choices were simple yet devastating: submit or suffer. Even the smallest acts of defiance felt impossible. Once, when I hesitated before accepting one of his gifts, a gold necklace, he grabbed my wrist so tightly I thought it might snap. "Don't insult me," he growled, his voice low and venomous. "I do things for you because I care. Don't forget who's keeping you safe." Safe from what? Him? The irony choked me, but I forced myself to nod, to smile, to play the part of the grateful recipient. What else could I do? Resistance only fueled his anger, and I couldn't risk provoking him further. The worst part was how he twisted reality to suit his narrative. To anyone else, our relationship might have looked normal, or even enviable. A man showering a woman with attention, taking care of her needs, ensuring she lacked nothing. But behind closed doors, the truth was far uglier. His presence dominated every corner of my life, his rules dictating everything from what I wore to whom I spoke. Even my silence became a weapon he wielded against me, framing my compliance as proof of my devotion. In his eyes, I wasn't a person. I was property, something to be owned and controlled. As weeks turned into months, the weight of his control pressed down on me until breathing itself felt like a struggle. I longed for freedom, but escape seemed unimaginable. How could I leave when every move I made was monitored? When his threats hung over me like storm clouds, ready to unleash their fury at any moment? The world outside my apartment offered no solace either. He'd convinced me that no one would believe me if I dared to speak up. After all, he wasn't just any man. He was the law, untouchable and invincible. And I was nothing more than his prisoner, bound not by chains but by fear. The day that changed everything was Valentine's Day, or what should have been a celebration of love and connection. Instead, it marked the beginning of an even darker chapter in my life. Officer Grayson had spent weeks preparing for this so-called special occasion, transforming my apartment into a grotesque shrine to his obsession. Red roses were scattered across every surface, their petals wilting under the weight of his suffocating presence. Candles flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows on the walls as if mocking me with their soft glow. When he arrived, dressed impeccably in civilian clothes, his grin sent chills down my spine. "Happy Valentine's Day," he said, handing me a small velvet box. Inside was a gaudy diamond ring, an object meant not as a gift, but as another chain binding me to him. But something felt different this time. There was an edge to his demeanor, a barely concealed rage simmering beneath his polished exterior. It wasn't until later that I discovered why. He had been fired from the force. The news hit me like a freight train. Without the shield of authority, Grayson became untethered, unpredictable. A loose cannon no longer restrained by rules or consequences. His eyes burned with desperation as he confessed, "They took everything from me because of you." My stomach churned at the accusation, knowing full well it wasn't true. But truth didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was survival. Then came Amber. She appeared out of nowhere, slipping through the cracks of Grayson's carefully constructed facade like smoke. At first glance, she seemed harmless. A quiet woman with piercing green eyes who spoke softly, yet carried herself with undeniable confidence. But there was something unsettling about her, something almost predatory in the way she watched us both. Grayson reacted violently to her arrival, shouting obscenities and slamming doors. "Stay away from her!" He barked at me when I tried to ask questions, yet Amber lingered, her presence growing more intrusive by the hour. She left cryptic notes around the apartment, each one hinting at secrets buried deep within Grayson's past. One note read simply, "The law doesn't protect monsters." As night fell, the tension reached a breaking point. Grayson paced furiously, muttering to himself while clutching a bottle of whiskey. His grip tightened whenever he looked at me, his paranoia spiraling out of control. Then, just before dawn, he shoved a crumpled piece of paper into my hand. "Read it," he demanded, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. The note was written in elegant cursive. "There's a free passenger seat in your car waiting for you. Let's make memories together." I froze, dread pooling in my chest. Was this a message from Grayson? Or worse, was it from someone else entirely? Whoever wrote it knew too much, saw too far ahead. And suddenly, the idea of escaping seemed more dangerous than staying. As Grayson dragged me toward the door, his fingers digging painfully into my arm, I realized we weren't going anywhere good. This journey would be anything but forgettable. It was a trip straight into the abyss. The phone rang just as Grayson's grip loosened for a fleeting second, a rare moment of vulnerability that sent my pulse racing. I hesitated, unsure whether answering it would provoke him further or offer some lifeline I desperately needed. "Who is it?" he barked, snatching the phone before I could react. His face twisted in anger as he read the caller ID, but there was also a flicker of something else. Fear? Confusion? Whatever it was, it gave me a sliver of hope. For the first time, I saw cracks in his armor, and I clung to them like a drowning woman grabbing at driftwood. "Tell them you're busy," he growled, shoving the phone back into my trembling hands. The voice on the other end was calm yet urgent, laced with authority. "We know where you are," they said. My breath hitched, and I glanced at Grayson, whose eyes narrowed dangerously. "Who knows what?" he demanded, stepping closer until his shadow loomed over me. "No one," I stammered, trying to sound convincing even as my heart pounded wildly. But deep down, I knew this call wasn't random. It was deliberate, calculated, perhaps even a rescue attempt. Or maybe it was another predator circling its prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The tension escalated when Grayson dragged me outside, his movements jerky and erratic. He shoved me toward his car, muttering under his breath about betrayal and control. As I slid into the passenger seat, the very seat mentioned in the cryptic note earlier, I felt the weight of symbolism pressing down on me. This wasn't just a ride. It was a metaphorical crossroads. On one hand, staying meant accepting captivity, surrendering myself to whatever fate awaited me within those gilded walls. On the other hand, fleeing carried risks I couldn't fully comprehend. Would escape lead to freedom? Or worse? As we sped through the deserted streets, the city lights blurred into streaks of neon against the darkness. Every turn felt like a decision point, every intersection a choice between life and death. Grayson's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. His jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might shatter. "You think someone can save you?" He spat, his voice venomous. "They don't understand us, do they? What we have, it's special." Special. The word echoed mockingly in my mind, a cruel reminder of how warped his perception had become. Then came the final twist. A black sedan pulled up beside us at a red light, its windows tinted too dark to see inside. My stomach churned as the driver honked twice, then flashed their headlights. Grayson cursed loudly, swerving violently to avoid collision. In that split second, I realized the sedan belonged to whoever had called earlier, the mysterious figure who now existed somewhere between savior and saboteur. Their presence forced Grayson into a frenzy, his paranoia spiraling out of control. "Stay away from her," he screamed, pounding on the horn as if trying to intimidate the unseen enemy. When the sedan disappeared around a corner, leaving us alone once more, Grayson's breathing grew ragged, his composure fraying at the edges. "This isn't over," he muttered, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. And then, as if sensing my resolve wavering, he turned to me with an expression both pleading and menacing. "Choose wisely," he whispered, gesturing toward the open road ahead. "Because once we start driving, there's no turning back." Every fiber of my being screamed to run, to leap from the car and disappear into the night. Yet fear rooted me to the spot, uncertainty clouding my judgment. Was this truly my chance to break free? Or was it another trap disguised as salvation? The answer lay somewhere beyond the horizon, hidden in shadows cast by flickering streetlights. As the engine roared to life again, I braced myself for whatever lay ahead, knowing that each heartbeat might be my last. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.